He was sitting on a bench outside a Walmart in Charlotte, North Carolina. Not asking for anything. Not holding a sign. Just sitting. The kind of sitting that people do when they have been moving for a very long time and have finally run out of somewhere to go. He was 71 years old, thin in the way that happens when a person has been missing meals regularly and not telling anyone about it, wearing a clean but very old gray jacket that had clearly been good quality once, a long time ago. His name was Walter Osi. Born in Kumasi, Ghana, came to America in 1987 with an engineering degree, $30, and a cousin's address in Atlanta. Spent 30 years building a civil engineering consultancy that eventually employed 40 people across 3 states. Married for 38 years to a woman named Gloria who died of a stroke 14 months before this story begins. After Gloria died, Walter stopped. Not dramatically, not all at once. Slowly. The way a clock stops when no one remembers to wind it anymore. He sold the company to his partners for considerably less than it was worth because negotiating required energy he no longer had. He moved from their house in Buckhead, too many rooms, too many of her things, to a small apartment in Charlotte where his daughter lived. His daughter worked double shifts as a nurse. She checked on him when she could. But grief is a full-time occupation, and Walter was working it around the clock. He had eaten half a sandwich that morning. Nothing since. That was yesterday. Imani Brooks was 6 years old. She was walking out of that Walmart with her mother Kezia 31, a postal worker, single mother, the kind of tired that lives behind the eyes of women who are doing everything alone and have decided complaining is a luxury they cannot afford. Imani had a lunchbox. Inside it, a peanut butter sandwich her mother had packed, an apple, a small bag of crackers, and a juice box. Kezia had told her she could pick one thing in the store. Imani had picked a 50-cent eraser shaped like a strawberry and held it like treasure. They were walking past the bench when Imani stopped. Kezia kept walking 3 steps before she realized her daughter was no longer beside her. She turned. Imani was standing in front of the old man. She was looking at him with the particular focus of a child who has spotted something that requires immediate action. She opened her lunchbox. She took out the peanut butter sandwich. She held it out to Walter with both hands the way children offer things, completely, without reservation, without calculating what they are giving away. "You should eat this," she said. "You look like you forgot to." Walter looked at the sandwich. He looked at this child. He looked at her mother, who had walked back and was standing behind Imani with an expression that was moving rapidly between surprise and something much softer. "I cannot take your lunch, little one," he said. "I am not little," Imani said firmly. "I am 6 and you need it more." Walter took the sandwich. Not because he wanted to accept charity. Because something about the absolute certainty in this child's face made refusing feel like the wrong answer to a question she had asked very clearly. He ate it slowly. Imani watched him eat with the satisfied expression of someone who has correctly solved a problem. "Do you have somewhere to go?" she asked. "Imani," Kezia said gently. "I am just asking," Imani said without taking her eyes off Walter. Walter smiled for the first time in, he could not remember exactly how long. "I have somewhere to go," he said. "Thank you for the sandwich." "You're welcome," Imani said. "I have crackers too, but I want those." Walter laughed. A real laugh. The kind that surprises a person who has forgotten they still have one. Kezia looked at this old man laughing at her daughter's complete honesty and felt something move in her chest that she did not immediately have a name for. She reached into her bag and took out a business card, the plain ones she had printed herself with her name and phone number for her small weekend cake business. "My name is Kezia," she said. "If you ever need a meal, a real one, you call that number." Walter took the card. He looked at it for a long time after they walked away. He called on a Thursday. Not because he was hungry, or not only because he was hungry. Because he had taken that card out of his wallet every day for 2 weeks and put it back without dialing. And on Thursday he decided that whatever was stopping him was the same thing that had been stopping him from everything since Gloria died, and he was tired of letting it win. Kezia made jollof rice, fried plantain and chicken. Walter arrived at her apartment door in his good gray jacket. Imani opened the door before he knocked. "I knew you would come," she announced. "I told Mama." "How did you know?" Walter asked. "Because you have a face that is looking for something," she said, "and you can't find it sitting on a bench." She led him inside like she had been expecting him for years. Those Thursday dinners became a thing. Not arranged formally, not discussed, just the following Thursday Walter called again, and the one after that. Kezia cooked. Walter brought mangoes because Imani had mentioned once that she loved them and he did not know how to arrive empty-handed. He helped Imani with her homework at the kitchen table while Kezia finished cooking. He was patient in the way that people are patient when they have grandchildren somewhere and the instinct has nowhere to go. Kezia watched him with her daughter and felt something she had trained herself not to feel, the dangerous warmth of a situation that was becoming something she had not planned for. She had learned the hard way that unplanned things had costs. Imani's father had been unplanned. His departure had been inevitable. She kept things professional, friendly, warm but boundaried. Walter understood without being told. He kept things the same. 3 months in, Walter told Kezia about Gloria. Not everything, the important things. How she used to hum while she cooked, how the apartment still smelled wrong without her, how he had given away her clothes too quickly and regretted it every single day since. Kezia told Walter about Marcus, Imani's father, how he had left when Imani was 8 months old, how she had cried for 3 months and then decided she did not have time to cry anymore, how sometimes she missed being chosen more than she missed him specifically. Walter said, Gloria chose me every day for 38 years. I did not understand what that meant until she couldn't anymore. Kezia looked at her plate. That is either the saddest thing I have ever heard, she said, or the most beautiful. Both. Walter said simply. From under the table where Imani had been sitting quietly drawing in her notebook while the adults talked, a small voice said, "Can I have more plantain?" And the weight of everything lifted just enough. 7 months after the bench outside Walmart, Walter had a fall. Not serious, a dizzy spell, a stumble in his kitchen, a bruised hip and a wounded pride. But his daughter called Kezia. She had the number from Walter's phone contacts, listed simply as Kezia and Imani Thursdays, and Kezia came. She brought food. She brought Imani. Imani sat beside Walter's chair and drew him a picture of a man standing up straight and tall and wrote underneath it in her careful 6-year-old letters, "You will be okay." Walter put it on his refrigerator. It was the first thing he had put on the refrigerator since he moved in. Now, here is where the story shifts. Because Walter Ose had not told Kezia everything. He had told her about Gloria, about the apartment, about the grief. He had not told her about his son, Daniel Osei, 34 years old, based in London, the founder and CEO of a renewable energy infrastructure company that had recently completed a $900 million funding round and was currently in the middle of expanding operations across the eastern United States. Daniel had his father's face and his mother's stubbornness and had spent the last 14 months trying to get Walter to come to London, come to the new house in Virginia, come anywhere that wasn't a small apartment in Charlotte where he was slowly disappearing. Walter had refused every time. Not because he was ungrateful. Because grief had made him stubborn, and stubborn had become the only thing keeping him upright. Daniel flew to Charlotte 4 times in 14 months. Walter made him tea and changed the subject. Then one Thursday Daniel called his father, and Walter did not answer. He called again. Walter answered on the 4th ring, distracted mid-sentence. "Imani, let me answer this. Yes, I told you the capital of France is Paris." Daniel heard laughter in the background. He heard his father's voice doing something it had not done in over a year. He heard it warm. "Papa, who is there?" "Thursday dinner," Walter said, as if this explained everything. "Thursday dinner with who?" Walter paused. "Friends," he said, "I will call you back." Daniel sat in his London office for a long time after that call. Then he called his assistant. "I need to go to Charlotte." He did not call ahead. He landed on a Friday, rented a car, drove to his father's apartment. Walter opened the door and his face did the thing faces do when they are surprised and trying not to show it. Daniel. Pape. They stood there for a moment the way fathers and sons stand when there is too much to say and neither of them was raised to say it easily. Daniel came in. The apartment was different. He could not immediately identify what was different. Then he saw the refrigerator. A drawing crayon, a figure standing straight and tall. You will be okay. Who drew that? Daniel asked. A friend, Walter said. The Thursday friend. Yes. Daniel looked at his father. At the apartment that had felt like a waiting room the last 3 times he visited. At the mangoes on the counter. At the small pair of child's drawing pencils on the kitchen table that did not belong to a 71-year-old man. I want to meet them, Daniel said. Walter was quiet for a moment. Come Thursday, he said. Kezia did not know anyone was coming. Walter had said nothing. She arrived with a mani and a pot of egusi soup and a bag of semolina and the easy comfort of someone who has been coming to a place long enough that it feels like an extension of home. She knocked. Walter opened the door. Behind him a man. Tall, his father's face but younger, sharper, the kind of composed that comes from years of boardrooms and high-stakes conversations. Kezia looked at Walter. Walter looked at Kezia with an expression that was somewhere between apology and hope. This is my son, he said, Daniel. Imani pushed past her mother's legs, looked up at Daniel with complete fearlessness and said, Are you the son from London? Your father talks about you but he makes a face when he does like it hurts a little. Daniel looked down at this child. Then at his father. Walter made a sound that was equal parts embarrassment and love. She is 6, he said, as if this explained everything. I can tell, Daniel said. He crouched down to Imani's level. I am the son from London, he said, and you drew the picture on the refrigerator. Yes, Imani said, because he needed to know. Did it work? Imani considered this very seriously. I think so, she said, he laughs on Thursdays now. Daniel stood up slowly. He looked at Kezia properly for the first time. She was looking back at him with the careful, measured expression of a woman who has learned to take her time with things that feel significant. Thank you, he said, for the Thursdays. Your father is good company, she said, and Imani adopted him. I did not have much say. I did not need adopting, Walter said from behind them. You were sitting on a bench not eating, Imani reminded him. Nobody had an answer for that. Daniel stayed through dinner. He ate 2 helpings of egusi soup and said nothing for a while because he was too busy eating to talk. Kezia watched him eat the way you watch someone eat food you made, looking for the honest reaction that happens before a person remembers to be polite. He was not polite about it. He was genuine. My mother used to make this, he said quietly. Kezia looked at Walter. Walter nodded almost imperceptibly. Gloria's recipe, she asked. Similar, Walter said, different hands, same feeling. The table was quiet for a moment. Imani broke it by asking Daniel if London had good mangoes. The answer was apparently complicated enough to last through the rest of dinner. Daniel came back the following Thursday. And the one after that. Not from London, he had extended his Charlotte trip, then extended it again, telling his assistant that the Eastern expansion planning required more ground-level research than anticipated. His assistant, who had worked for him for 4 years, said, Of course, sir, and did not mention that Charlotte was not on the Eastern expansion map. He and Kezia walked to the park one Saturday while Walter watched Imani at the apartment. They talked for 3 hours. Not about the company, not about London. About Marcus and why she had stopped trusting quickly. About the woman Daniel had almost married 2 years ago and the specific way that ending had changed how he moved through the world. About what it cost Kezia to open her door to a stranger who needed feeding and whether she would do it again. Every time, she said without hesitation. Daniel looked at her. Even knowing what it leads to. I don't know what it leads to yet, she said carefully. I think you might, he said. She looked ahead at the path. I think you should go slowly, she said. I can go slowly, he said. She looked at him sideways. Your father went slowly for 7 months. My father, Daniel said, was waiting to make sure you were real. And he called me the day after the fall, Daniel said. He said, I am quoting exactly, there is a woman who came with soup and did not make me feel like a burden, and I think you should know she exists. Kezia stopped walking. He said that. Word for word. She covered her mouth with her hand. Not crying close to it. He never told me that. He told me, Daniel said, because he wanted me to understand why Thursday matters. 14 months after Imani held out a peanut butter sandwich with both hands outside a Walmart in Charlotte, North Carolina. Daniel Osai flew Kezia and Imani to London. Not for a proposal, not yet. For Imani to see the city she had been drawing in her notebook every Thursday while the adults talked, Big Ben's slightly wrong, the Thames a wobbly blue line, a Buckingham Palace that looked more like a birthday cake than a palace. Walter came too. He sat next to Imani on the plane and helped her draw the clouds. She fell asleep on his shoulder somewhere over the Atlantic with her red crayon still in her hand. He did not move for 2 hours. In London, on the third evening, Daniel took Kezia to dinner. Just the two of them. Small restaurant, corner table, the kind of quiet that means the food is taken seriously. Halfway through the meal, Daniel reached into his jacket and placed something on the table between them. A business card. Worn at the edges, slightly creased in the middle. Kezia's card. The plain one she had printed herself. Kezia Brooks Homemade Cakes and Catering, call anytime. My father kept it in his wallet, Daniel said. He gave it to me the day I flew to Charlotte. He said, this is where it started, I want you to have it so you remember. Kezia looked at the card. At her own name in the small plain font she had chosen because she could not afford a designer. Remember what? She asked quietly. That the whole thing started because a 6-year-old gave a hungry man a sandwich, Daniel said, and her mother gave him a reason to call. Kezia looked up at him. I just gave him food. You gave him Thursdays, Daniel said. You have no idea what Thursdays did. She looked at the card for a long time. I printed 200 of those, she said finally. I gave out maybe 30. This one, Daniel said, changed everything. She picked it up. Held it. Put it back down between them. Ask me properly, she said. Not tonight, we haven't finished the fish. Daniel smiled. When Imani decides, Kezia said. She started this, she should know when it's ready. 6 weeks later, back in Charlotte, Imani was drawing at the kitchen table. Walter was reading in the armchair. Daniel was in the kitchen pretending to help Kezia cook, while actually just standing close enough to be in the way. Imani looked up from her drawing. She looked at her mother. She looked at Daniel. She looked at Walter. She went back to her drawing, added something, and slid it across the table to Walter. He picked it up. 4 figures, 2 tall, 2 small, all holding hands, underneath in her most careful letters. This is US now. Walter showed it to Daniel without a word. Daniel looked at it for a long time. Then he looked at Kezia. She was already looking at him. Imani, he said. Yes, she said without looking up from her new drawing. Is it ready? A pause. She looked up. Studied him with those 6-year-old eyes that had been seeing things accurately since the beginning. It was ready on the bench, she said simply. You just needed to catch up. He tested a city with everything stripped away. No. That is the other story. This one is simpler. An old man sat on a bench because grief had made him still. And a child who had not yet learned that hungry strangers were supposed to be someone else's problem walked up to him and said, Eat this. Not because she knew who he was. Not because she knew who his son was. Not because she understood what she was starting. Because he looked like he forgot to eat. And she had a sandwich. And in her 6 years of living, she had not yet learned a single reason why that should not be enough. 412 people walked past a bench in Charlotte. One little girl stopped. One mother left a card. And a family that did not exist on a Tuesday morning existed completely by the following spring. Imani drew it before any of them knew it was coming. She usually does.